I'm Lynn. Recently, I got married to my husband, Scott, and now I have a sister-in-law named Abigail, but I just got this weird call from her. Lynn, you listening? I am, but I didn't quite catch that. Okay, I'll say it again. Your cruiser? I crashed it into an iceberg. Yeah, still doesn't make sense. Needless to say, there's a lot to unpack here. First off, I don't own a cruiser. And what's this about an iceberg? You wouldn't see icebergs unless you're near the Arctic or Antarctic. We're in Los Angeles, so I doubt there's an iceberg nearby. But knowing Abigail, she probably doesn't realize that. She's a bit different in many ways. She's either confused about something or trying to tease me, one of the two. Thinking this, I asked Abigail again. Did you really crash into an iceberg? Yeah, I intentionally hit the iceberg and sank it. Abigail answered, laughing. Annoyed by her tone, I asked her a bit more sternly. Can you explain a bit more? Len, you're so silly. Fine, I'll explain. Abigail started her explanation, still laughing. Her story began when I visited Scott's family home. The reason for going to Scott's place was simple. We had a family meeting. Naturally, Abigail was there too. As soon as she saw me, she said, Wow, you look kinda Japanese. My grandma's Japanese. My grandma is Japanese, and my grandpa is American. Their daughter, my mom, married an American, my dad, and they had me and my brother. Later, when I was in upper elementary school, we moved to Birmingham, Alabama, due to my father's job. My appearance is a bit different from typical Americans, more East Asian, like Japanese. I've been teased about it a few times, so I was a bit on guard, thinking Abigail might do the same. But Abigail just said, Really? That's so cool. You're really cute. She complimented me like that. In a moment, I felt relieved. What if they hadn't accepted me? That's what I had been worrying about. Thank you. Looking forward to getting along. Sure thing. That's how I talked with Abigail, and then Victoria, my soon-to-be mother-in-law, joined the conversation. Len, you lived in Los Angeles, right? Do you still have a house there? The house we lived in is occupied by someone else now, but we do have relatives' homes there. Oh, I see. But as long as you have relatives' homes there, no need to worry. Victoria seemed oddly pleased. Then Abigail chimed in. That's what I was thinking too. I had a bad feeling about this, but an opportunity to travel with Victoria and her family isn't likely to come up often. So I didn't make much of it and let the conversation flow. However, Victoria and Abigail kept asking odd questions afterwards. About the kind of house I lived in Los Angeles, the kind of car I drove. Finally, they even asked about my relatives' homes in Los Angeles. I replied that I lived in a house with a pool and my uncle lives by a river. Hearing this, Victoria and her group laughed maliciously. That's when I realized they were planning to use my relatives to take a trip to the West Coast. Oh no. They're planning to take full advantage of me. But it's hard to complain to people you just met. And complaining might jeopardize their acceptance of the marriage. After much thought, I decided to bear it for now. After all, the chance to go to the West Coast wasn't immediate. By the time it came around, we'd probably be in a position to have a proper discussion. For the moment, I decided not to touch on the subject. Somehow I managed to get through the introductions. At the end, Abigail asked for my contact information, which I regretfully shared. That was a big mistake. After that, she started contacting me more frequently. At first, it was about once a week, so I just went along with it or declined casually. But gradually, she began to reach out more often. It became a hassle, and I started making convenient excuses like being at work or driving. Once Scott and I filed our marriage application, Abigail became completely unreserved. I tried to accommodate her a few times, but twice or thrice a week was just too much. And yet today she called again saying, Hey Lynn, want to hang out? It's already 8 p.m. I have work tomorrow. What? You can't make it work, right? No, I can't. Abigail finished high school and works part-time. She probably has more free time, but I'm a full-time employee. I work weekdays from Monday till evening, and my only days off are the weekends and the holidays. Now that I'm married, I have household responsibilities too. I just don't have the leisure to accommodate Abigail. Sorry, I have a meeting early tomorrow morning. Stingy, even though you're rich. With those words, the call ended. Since then, I haven't heard from Abigail. What's this about being rich? I work full-time, but it's not like I earn a high salary. I couldn't make sense of it. The next day, I got a call from Victoria. Len, want to go shopping together? I'm pretty busy with work, I replied nonchalantly. Then Victoria said something strange. You're rich, right, Len? I wanted to consult you about some brands I'm interested in. Wait, did I just hear something odd? Something about being rich? Wondering if I misheard, I asked Victoria to clarify. Sorry, did you just say something about being rich? Yes, I did. What about it? I'm not rich. What? But you lived in Los Angeles, right? Victoria said, as if it were the most natural thing. Does living in Los Angeles automatically make one rich? If that logic holds, does it mean all Los Angeles residents are wealthy? All these thoughts were swirling in my head. As I sighed, Victoria asked, What's wrong? Just a misunderstanding. I'm not rich. What? Even though you lived in a house with a pool? That's common in California. Oh, really? Yes. Sorry, I must have misunderstood. With those words, Victoria abruptly hung up. I was left puzzled. What was that all about? No matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't find an answer. When I discussed this with Scott, he talked to Victoria and Abigail for me. According to Scott, here's what happened. Learning that I lived in Los Angeles, and specifically in a house with a pool, they assumed it must be in Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills means wealth, so they concluded I must be wealthy. Indeed, if one lives in Beverly Hills, it's not unreasonable to think they might be well off. But I just lived in Los Angeles, not Beverly Hills. So Victoria and her group's assumption were flawed. But they believed what they thought, hence the probing about my house. I did find it odd when they asked me those questions, but I couldn't lie. So I told the truth, which unfortunately fed their misconceptions. A house with a pool might be common in California, but it's almost unheard of here in Birmingham. It seems Victoria and her group misunderstood and thought I was wealthy. They probably thought being rich means they could benefit from my marriage. They could expect money gifts from me. Anyway, if I cozy up to them, something good might come of it. That seems to be what they were thinking. That's why they were contacting me so often. Eventually, Scott clarified the misunderstanding, but Victoria and her group seemed to grumble about it. Well, if I had been a rich girl, maybe we could have gone on trips or partied every night. I can understand their disappointment when all that became impossible. But still, it was good that the misunderstanding was cleared up. Sometime later, when I went to discuss the wedding plans with Victoria's family, if the misunderstanding had persisted, Victoria would have wanted a lavish wedding. But she actually said to me, "What kind of wedding are you planning? You're not going for something too extravagant, right?" "Yeah, I think a small family-only affair would be nice." "Right. You have to be mindful of expenses now." She seemed concerned, which was nice. However, Abigail still seemed to have her doubts about me. She didn't participate much in the wedding discussion, which was a bit disappointing. But even without Abigail's input, our wedding was still happening. A year later, we managed to have a lovely wedding. On the wedding day, my parents, who live in Birmingham, managed to make it in time for the ceremony. But my grandparents from Los Angeles couldn't come due to the difficulty of travel. Instead, my Uncle Taylor, my mother's brother, came. He said he would take pictures to show to my grandparents. As I was waiting in the dressing room a few hours before the ceremony, Taylor came to see me. Lynn, how are you doing? Taylor's company deals with boat rentals, handling cruisers and pleasure boats, popular among young Americans. He showed me a photo saying, "Look at this, I bought it." It was a cruiser in the photo, clearly expensive at a glance. How much? This much. Taylor typed a number on his phone. $3 million? What? It seemed he didn't catch what I said. Taylor has some hearing issues due to an accident in his youth, and speaking a bit louder helps him understand better. As I was marveling at how he could afford such a sum, Taylor showed me another photo. Lynn, this is a wedding present for you. For me? It was a picture of a pleasure boat. According to Taylor, his company had recently replaced some boats. He had kept one of them aside for me. It was currently at his riverside home, and I could use it when I visited. Thank you. While I was talking about this, Abigail entered the dressing room. What's this? What did you get? Abigail had a sly smile on her face. Seems like she was eavesdropping outside the dressing room. If I tell Abigail about the pleasure boat, she'll definitely insist on being taken for a ride, so I'd rather not tell her. But it seems she already overheard, so it might be hard to hide it. Reluctantly, I said, Taylor gave me a boat. A boat? Who just gives away a boat like that? It's a second-hand boat from Taylor's company. Instead of disposing of it, he gave it to me. Huh, interesting. Abigail didn't seem very interested. In a way, that was a relief. After Taylor left the room, I moved in front of the mirror to do my makeup. Glancing through my mirror, I noticed Abigail looking at the photo Taylor had brought. Maybe she's more interested than she lets on. As I was thinking this, Abigail had disappeared. Soon after, the wedding was over. On the way back in the car, Victoria said to me, Lynn, did you inform Grandma about your marriage? Of course I did. I even sent her photos of my wedding dress. That's good, but don't you think it would be better to visit her? As I was fearing this turn of events, Victoria continued. I'd like to greet your grandpa and grandma too, but they're in Los Angeles. That's why I was thinking, why don't we combine it with a family trip to the West Coast? It seems Victoria hadn't given up on the trip idea. It was a hard proposition to refuse. As I was thinking about how to decline, Victoria said, Actually, I talked to Taylor. What? With Taylor? Yes, and he said he'd love for us to visit. Did Taylor catch that in all the noise? Huh? That's something you overcome with willpower. I'm pretty sure Taylor didn't get it. So I refused, not wanting to inconvenience Taylor. Then Victoria frowned suddenly. Oh, poor Grandpa and Grandma. Couldn't attend the wedding, can't see their grandchild. Please don't say it like that. Don't you want to see them? I do, but... See, then let's go. In the end, I couldn't refuse. Pushed by Victoria, we decided to go to the West Coast for our honeymoon. But I wasn't unhappy about it. I would get to see Grandpa and Grandma after a long time, and we could play in the river near Taylor's house. There's also the pleasure boat, so it's sure to be fun. Might as well enjoy it to the fullest. With that mindset, I decided to go have a good time. A few months after the wedding, we used our summer vacation to travel to the West Coast. When I explained the situation to Taylor, he happily agreed to host us. So Scott, Victoria, Abigail, and I headed to Taylor's house in Los Angeles. Father-in-law couldn't join due to work commitments. Still, it was our first family trip since getting married. I wanted to use this opportunity to bond with Victoria and Abigail. That was my plan. The day we arrived was spent joyfully reuniting with Grandpa and Grandma and introducing Scott to them. I also introduced Victoria and Abigail, and we all enjoyed a family party. Abigail, with her inherent cheerfulness, quickly got along with Taylor's family. Victoria seemed to be having fun too, and we felt a step closer to being a real family. That's what I thought. The next day, my brother Kevin, who lives alone in San Francisco, came to visit late in the morning. Lynn. Kevin, how's school? For context, Kevin is a college student. It's the weekend, right? I'm off, so I came to say hello. I'll introduce you to Scott and the others. We talked, but I couldn't find Victoria and Abigail anywhere. Scott, who was helping my aunt, was there, but not Victoria and her group. Scott, where are Victoria and the others? I don't know. Scott shrugged. That's when I suddenly got a call from Abigail. Hello, Len? Abigail, where are you? My brother just arrived. Before I could finish, Abigail burst into laughter. You're so laid back, Len. What's going on, Abigail? Do you know where we are? I was just looking for you. Where are you? That's a secret. Just wanted to tell you something. Tell me what? Your cruiser. I deliberately crashed it into an iceberg and sank it. Abigail laughed loudly. That was the extent of what Abigail explained over the phone. So that's what happened. Got it? I understood the story, but what about my cruiser? Thinking it over, I remembered something. From the wedding day, Taylor had given me a pleasure boat. That time, Abigail was eavesdropping on our conversation. She saw the photo of the cruiser and heard me talking about getting a boat, so she might have been confused. Then I tried clarifying. You know, if it's my boat, it's at my house. The pleasure boat I received is at Taylor's house. I'm not sure of it since I glanced at it. No, it's different. Your cruiser sank right in front of me. It's hard to say, but I don't own a cruiser. What? There was a photo. You were talking about the boat being a gift. The boat I received was the pleasure boat. Pleasure what? Right, Abigail is a bit different. She wouldn't know the difference between a pleasure boat and a cruiser. A pleasure boat is for fun, and a cruiser is for staying overnight. What do you mean? It means the cruiser you're talking about sinking isn't mine. What? Whose cruiser is it then? That's what I wanted to know. But from her talk about the photo, it's probably Taylor's cruiser. As I was thinking this, I heard Taylor screaming over the phone, shouting things like, "What have you done?" and "What's going on?" Then I realized Abigail mistake it for my cruiser and had sunk Taylor's $3 million cruiser. Abigail, don't move. Why? What's wrong? This is Los Angeles, not some rural area like Alabama. Sinking a boat and running away is a big deal here. Really? Yes, police here deal with serious crimes. They're not like the sheriffs in Alabama. You understand? Oh, no! I could hear Abigail crying. She seemed to be pleading with Victoria nearby. Mom, help me! I don't know, Abigail. You did it on your own. Help me! I just wanted to be on the cruiser. It seemed like they were passing the blame to each other. Well, as long as they stay put, that's fine. I quickly contacted Scott and headed to the marina where Taylor's cruiser was. The marina was a few minutes' drive away. Arriving at the scene, several police officers were already there. I talked to a stunned Taylor. He told me this. Early in the morning, Abigail and Victoria had asked him to go on the cruiser, but their strong Alabama accent made their English hard to understand. Taylor thought that's what they wanted from their difficult-to-understand English. Meanwhile, I asked Abigail for her side of the story, and she said, I kept telling Taylor to let me on Len's cruiser. You actually said that? He didn't quite understand me. Well, I see. So I kept repeating Len's cruiser to Taylor. I think I get what she's trying to say, but I doubt that would get the message across. So I checked with Taylor about what he heard. He said, Lisa Cruiser. Now that I think about it, the pronunciation isn't too far off. And with Abigail's strong Alabama accent, it's not surprising it was misheard. But leasing implies long-term rental. Normally, one would refuse such a request. But Taylor had realized last night that Abigail was a bit unusual. She kept repeating, Lisa Cruiser. Taylor, out of kindness, thought she wanted to borrow a cruiser. As a result, he let Abigail onto his own cruiser, and she misunderstood it as mine. That seems to be what happened. But why did you want to sink my cruiser? I thought you lied about not being rich, getting cruisers and stuff. She thought I was actually rich enough to receive a cruiser, but was hiding it. Abigail wanted to get back at me for lying. Even if it was out of jealousy or feeling lied to, sinking a cruiser is too extreme. But I still had questions, so I asked her, "How did you manage to operate the cruiser? You don't have a boating license, do you?" "I just kind of figured it out by watching Taylor." "So you guessed?" "Yeah, I fiddled around and it started moving. And then I couldn't stop it, crashed into the dock, and it started sinking. So I thought I might as well sink it." According to Abigail, her plan was just to cause a little trouble, but the cruiser moved more easily than expected and hit the dock. It then started sinking, and she panicked. But her coming to me with this was infuriating. Yet, if left alone, it would become a huge problem, and she didn't think to call the police in her panic. How could she convey this situation to me and give me a scare? Abigail thought of this. There was a movie about a ship sinking after hitting an iceberg. She figured she could use that as a reference, saying it hit an iceberg would surely cause panic. Besides, that movie was a Hollywood film. Hollywood is in Los Angeles, so they couldn't have filmed it without nearby icebergs. Therefore, she assumed there must be icebergs nearby. With this bizarre and whimsical reasoning, Abigail lied about hitting an iceberg and sinking. Moreover, she thought if she said such a thing, I would be worried about her safety. Then she expected me to rush over in a panic. Seeing my panicked state would be enough revenge for her. I understood why she lied about hitting an iceberg, but her reasoning was ludicrously flawed. Afterwards, both Abigail and Victoria got a scolding from Scott. Fortunately, there was no damage to other boats, so paying for the repairs settled the matter. "And after all that, why do I have to work for a river cleaning company?" Abigail cried in Birmingham. "It's obvious. The repair costs were substantial." "But there are other jobs." "Well, you wanted to be on a boat, right? This river cleaning company lets you do just that." "I wanted to be on a cruiser, not just any boat." In the end, Abigail was left crying while working for the river cleaning company, picking up trash from the boat. It was tough work, but ideal for her who wanted to be on a boat. For me, there was a slight upside. Actually, Victoria started working too, for Abigail's sake. This meant she stopped contacting me as much. Of course, I want to get along with them. But for now, it's important they work and earn money, especially for Taylor's sake. Otherwise, I'd be in trouble. After all, I haven't even been on that $3 million cruiser yet. "Can you loan me $5? I haven't eaten in 3 days." Mom said, leaving me stunned. What did that mean? I was confused. "I will not lend it. No way." Next to me, Jackson, shaking and wide-eyed, erupted in anger. "How can you not lend just $5 when she hasn't eaten anything?" Jackson calmed down at my words, returning to his usual gentle demeanor. "I'm sorry about earlier. What I meant was, I won't be financially supporting Tristan anymore," he explained. I understood where Jackson was coming from. He must have thought it would be strange if Tristan was exploiting Mom. My name is Alyssa. I'm a 55-year-old housewife. I live in a detached house with my husband Jackson, who is 5 years my senior. Our 2 children have grown up and moved out after getting jobs. It's a bit lonely, but Jackson and I are enjoying a peaceful life after parenting. Jackson isn't much of a talker, but he's kind, gentle, and I've never seen him raise his voice. After retiring at 65, Jackson got hired at his old company, commuting about 3 days a week. At my parents' home, Mom and Dad live together. Jackson has an older brother by 3 years, Tristan. Unlike Jackson, Tristan is quick to speak his mind and often becomes emotional. The brothers are complete opposites. Mom's hobby was listening to stand-up comedy on a small boombox. She had a large collection of stand-up comedy tapes and often laughed at them since I was a child. Dad was as kind as Mom, and I barely remember being scolded by him. Dad used to work in a restaurant and was skilled in cooking. I learned a lot about cooking from him. Dad enjoyed cooking steaks for family gatherings at Christmas and the like. I remember Tristan looking up to him, thinking it was cool. Dad often cooked dinner on weekdays. Sitting at the living room table, drinking coffee with Mom, waiting for Dad's cooking, Mom would say with a smile, "It's the opposite of most homes, with Dad busy in the kitchen and me relaxing," which was memorable. Seeing Mom's happy smile, I always thought I wanted to be like them when I got older. Then Dad passed away. He seemed healthy, but was suffering from cancer. His condition worsened rapidly, and Mom hardly had time to grieve. For a while, Mom became like a shell of herself, often zoning out. Worried that she might fall ill from grief, my children kept visiting and encouraging her. Thanks to that, Mom regained her spirits and could live smilingly like before. Around that time, Tristan decided to quit his job and open a pub. Perhaps influenced by my dad, who was a chef, Tristan is easily influenced. Maybe he thought Dad's knife skills were cool. The family opposed his decision to go independent in a not-so-great economic climate. Jackson was against it too. Tristan's selfish nature meant he would likely fail if he went out on his own, we thought. I doubted Tristan's chances of success, focusing only on appearances. Pouring his savings into it and mortgaging his apartment for a loan, Tristan opened the pub, but his arrogance was his downfall. Customers soon stopped coming, and the pub closed within a year. Family relations soured as the business failed, and his wife left him with their children when the pub closed. Tristan lost his family and apartment, leaving him with nothing but debt. Homeless, Tristan turned to my parents' house. While everyone blamed Tristan, only my mom was kind to him. "If you have nowhere to live, you can stay with us," she offered, suggesting they live together. I was more worried than opposed. I could easily imagine Mom being troubled by Tristan's selfish and headstrong nature. Jackson shared my concerns, but to Tristan, it was as if luck had finally turned his way, and he moved in regardless. Looking back, this kindness would lead to unfortunate outcomes. Tristan, now living at my parents' house like a parasite, spent his days doing nothing in particular, just lazing around. Whenever I visited Mom, he was often lying on the sofa with a beer in one hand and a horse racing newspaper in the other. It seemed Tristan had become entirely too comfortable staying at my parents' home. After a while, Tristan got remarried without consulting or even informing us beforehand. As he began to live with Mom in my childhood home, his new wife, Abigail, was 9 years his junior, known for her flashy makeup and long nails. I met her once. She had a loud voice and was quick to speak her mind. I was worried about how Abigail's assertive personality would mesh with Mom's, wondering if they could get along. Abigail worked at Tristan's favorite bar and shared his interest in horse racing, which is how they got close. Tristan said she showed him how to enjoy life, though his idea of enjoyment was questionable. One rare occasion, Tristan and Abigail visited our home. They were job hunting without success and asked for a loan until they could find employment. "Could you support us just until I find my next job?" Tristan asked nonchalantly, legs crossed arrogantly on the sofa. His manner of asking made me doubt whether he was truly in need. "I've been thinking of starting part-time work too, but it's been hard to find anything." Abigail's tone was humble, yet something seemed off. I also noticed the expensive brand-name bag Abigail carried, which bothered me. Indeed, Tristan had lost everything after his business failure. That much was true. "All right, we'll help, but please make an effort to find work." Jackson must have had his reservations, but decided to support Tristan, his only brother. Like Jackson, I too thought it was best to support Tristan. We decided to provide Tristan and his wife with $2,000 a month for living expenses, money we had saved for our retirement, choosing to give it without mentioning anything. I believed this bad situation wouldn't last forever. Jobs would be found, the need for financial support would end, and they might even start repaying us, I hoped. In hindsight, my optimism was perhaps too great. A year passed without a word from Tristan and his wife. Unable to bear the lack of communication any longer, we decided to visit their home. No answer came from ringing the doorbell for a while, until Abigail finally responded, but only through the door, refusing to open it. "It's really inconvenient when you just show up without warning. You should at least call ahead. It's rude." Abigail snapped, not bothering to open the door. Even as I insisted on being let in, she refused. "We're busy right now," was all she would say. That day we left, defeated by Abigail's persistence. What concerned me more than the money was Mom. I would later regret not insisting on entering their home that day. A shocking event occurred just a few days after our visit to Tristan's. That day, a hurricane was passing through, with heavy rain and wind lashing outside. We had closed the shutters early and were hunkered down at home. Deep into the night, startled by the rain and wind hammering at the shutters, the doorbell rang repeatedly. "Ding dong! Ding dong! Ding dong! Ding dong!" Wondering what was happening, I decided to check on it, thinking it might be Tristan. Looking through the doorbell monitor, I saw Mom, drenched in the rain. "Alyssa, help me!" Mom pleaded through the doorbell. Rushing to the door, Jackson and I opened it to find Mom soaked, hair a mess from the storm covered in grass and leaves, wearing sandals with her feet full of small cuts. "Can you loan me $5? I haven't eaten in 3 days," Mom said, leaving me stunned. What did that mean? I was confused. "I will not lend it, no way." Next to me, Jackson, shivering and wide-eyed, erupted in anger. I was at a loss for words at Jackson's firm refusal. Mom shrank back at Jackson's overly stern tone. She looked like she might collapse at any moment. It was the first time I saw Jackson so angry, raising his voice. I couldn't hold back and retorted to Jackson. "How can you not lend just $5 when she hasn't eaten anything?" Jackson, jolted by my words, returned to his usual calm demeanor. Then, with tears welling up, he let Mom into the house. "I'm sorry for raising my voice," he apologized. Mom entered, looking bewildered, and took a seat on the living room sofa. I handed her a bath towel to prevent a cold, given her drenched state. Taking a good look at Mom again, I saw she had become thin. Her once full hair, now sparse and thin. Her fingers skeletal. What had happened to Mom? I was filled with questions. Jackson spoke to Mom gently, apologizing again. "I'm sorry about earlier. What I meant was that we won't be financially supporting Tristan anymore." I understood Jackson's feelings. He probably thought it wouldn't be odd if Tristan was exploiting Mom. But right now, my concern was Mom. "Mom, are you okay?" Mom remained silent, looking down. "Mother-in-law, how about you stay with us for a while?" Mom stayed silent. "Has Tristan said something to you?" After a long look at Jackson, Mom slowly started to speak. "But you are all bothered by me, right? You hate me, don't you?" Confused by Mom's inexplicable words, Jackson and I exchanged puzzled looks. Why would she think that? Mom continued, looking at us sternly. "You and Jackson have come to hate me. That's what Tristan told me." "What are you talking about? That's not true at all." I couldn't help but respond. There's no way we would hate our beloved Mom. Mom began to cry, sobbing. "We've always loved you, Mom. There's no way we can hate you. We've missed you so much." I embraced Mom without hesitation. Mom hugged me back and started crying loudly. She talked about trying to leave the house in the middle of the night like a sleepwalker, wanting to see me. Since then, she was tied to the bed, unable to move. Not allowed to go to the bathroom. She was left with diapers by the bed. She was only untied for using the toilet, eating, and doing house chores. Mom's meals were limited to oatmeal, only twice a day. Tristan and Abigail constantly fed her lies about Jackson and me, claiming we had abandoned her, always hated her, piling up falsehoods. They would leave Mom restrained and not return, leaving her without food for 3 days. Unable to shower or use the toilet, she was forced to rely on diapers. Believing her life was at risk, Mom managed to free herself and escape. Hearing the shocking extent of her suffering, we were speechless. Such cruelty was beyond human. Were Tristan and his wife devils? All I felt was immense pity for Mom. Considering the distance, it would take an hour on foot under normal circumstances. Much longer for Mom, especially during a hurricane. The thought of her struggle to reach us brought me to tears. "Don't worry, from now on, we'll protect you." Mom nodded repeatedly to these words, relieved. "So what was all that Tristan and Abigail told you?" "It turns out everything they said was a lie." Mom looked shocked, never having doubted others or experienced such malice. A series of unbelievable events for Mom. "Probably Tristan was counting on living here and targeting your old age pension." "But don't worry, we'll take care of you, Mom." Mom, reassured by those words, smiled warmly. I made clam chowder for Mom, Dad's specialty. Mom murmured nostalgically, "It brings back memories." Savoring it, Jackson, tears in his eyes, muttered to himself while looking at Mom, "I'll never forgive Tristan and the others for putting you through this." When I asked Mom where Tristan and the others were, she mentioned they went to Kentucky for horse racing. It seems there's a big race tomorrow, so they probably won't return until then. Jackson and I began plotting our retaliation. The next morning, I prepared Dad's recipes for breakfast for Mom. Mom, who had lost her appetite, ate only a little, but commented, "It's been a long time since I've had something this delicious." Seeing Mom eat with a smile made my heart ache even more. How could someone as kind and unsuspecting as Mom have gone through such hardship? After finishing her meal, Mom quietly started to speak. "They said they didn't like my attitude. Too pretentious. They kicked me." I gasped in shock. How could anyone do something so terrible? My heart ached with sorrow for what Mom had endured, and tears spilled over. Mom tenderly wiped away my tears. "Alyssa, I'm sorry for bringing this up." Mom looked down, apologetic. "Mom, it's not your fault. We'll protect you from now on. You won't have to go through this ever again." Mom looked at me with a smile. I returned the smile to Mom. After breakfast and calming down, I took Mom, who had showered, to the hospital. The diagnosis revealed severe malnutrition and dehydration. Given her age, hospitalization was advised, so Mom was admitted for a few days. No other illnesses were found, and she could be discharged soon once her nutrition improved. However, the doctor, after examining Mom, asked about her living situation in a stern tone. I detailed the circumstances Mom was in. The doctor suspected I might be abusing her. After my explanation cleared up the misunderstanding, the doctor smiled and said they would contact social services. Abuse was strongly suspected. This was exactly what I had hoped for, so I readily agreed. Soon, a social service agent arrived and discussed Mom's diet, confinement, and the violence she suffered. Mom's body had bruises all over. The agent, shocked by the severity, said they would consult with the police. Watching Mom sleep peacefully, I regretted not noticing sooner and visiting her, my tears streaming down my face. Mom, I promise we won't forgive them. They will pay for this. I gripped my mom's frail hand tightly. Mom woke up and smiled at me. When you go to my house, please bring the boombox and the stand-up comedy tapes, all of them. Those were Mom's favorites. I nodded firmly. The next morning, Jackson and I headed to Tristan's family home. My anger surpassed my sadness. But Jackson was even angrier than I was. We thought no one was home when our doorbell presses went unanswered, so we were about to leave when a sleepy voice finally responded. Knowing Tristan and the others were inside, we used the key we had to open the front door and entered. Abigail, surprised to see us in the living room. "What are you two doing here all of a sudden?" exclaimed. When I confronted Abigail with, "What's wrong with the children visiting their parents' home?" she hesitated, saying, "Well, it's not that, but," trailing off. Looking around the house, it was overflowing with trash, and the smell of rotten food hit my nose. The floor felt sticky. "Such a mess. When do you ever clean up?" Jackson asked in astonishment. Tristan, lying on the sofa, clicked his tongue at us. "That old lady doesn't clean up," Tristan mumbled, to which Jackson sharply responded, "Hey, you had mother-in-law take care of even the trash." Jackson glared at him with piercing eyes. Tristan covered his mouth, realizing his mistake, and left the living room. Jackson hurled words at Tristan as he walked away. "Your breath smells like alcohol. Have you been drinking all night?" I took another look at Abigail. Abigail's hair was disheveled. Her shirt was stretched out at the neck, revealing her undershirt. Her makeup seemed not fully removed, with black smudges around her eyes. Noticing my scrutinizing gaze, Abigail, perhaps embarrassed, looked down with a sour expression. "When you visit someone's house, it's common courtesy to call ahead. It's annoying otherwise." Abigail picked up a barely smoked cigarette from the ashtray and lit it. "So your idea of normal is sleeping past noon without cleaning?" Abigail was at a loss for words. As Abigail struggled to respond, Tristan came back shouting loudly, "Hey, where'd that old lady go?" He must have just realized the bed was empty. "We're taking care of her. She was in such bad shape nutritionally that we had her admitted to the hospital. A little later, and it could have been life-threatening." I exaggerated a bit about Mom's condition. Tristan glared at Abigail. "That's what I said. You went too far." Abigail, fed up, retorted to Tristan, "You're the one who said to tie her up because she's noisy at night." "Besides, it's her fault for not helping out around the house, even though we feed her." Listening to them start insulting each other, I felt an unbearable anger. "Mom hadn't eaten for 3 days, and she had no money at all. It's too much." "It can't be helped. Tristan doesn't work, so we have no income. We're saving money." Yet Tristan and Abigail looked well-fed and had healthy complexions with fat around their bellies. "Despite that, you two are fat and look healthy." "And where have you been these past few days?" "Wherever we want to be." Abigail turned sullen and evasive. Jackson picked up a horse racing newspaper nearby and threw it at Tristan. "You were at the horse races in Kentucky. We already know." Tristan scratched his head, looking uncomfortable. "Well, that's, Seeing Tristan and Abigail's unrepentant, parasitic way of life, stealing from others, filled me with anger and tears. While Mom was wasting away, you two didn't work, living off the money we sent and Mom's old age pension, going out and about. Jackson, too, must have been furious, raising his voice to denounce Tristan. "You didn't even provide mother-in-law with proper meals, tying her to the bed at night." According to Mom, Tristan and Abigail had been living a slothful life, squandering the money Jackson sent, and Mom's old age pension on drinking, gambling at horse races, and casinos. Where's your proof? The old lady must be making it all up. Abigail came at us aggressively. Is this Abigail's true nature? Reluctantly, I decided to present the evidence. I brought the boombox Mom cherished from the bed she had been sleeping in to the living room. In the living room, I inserted a stand-up comedy cassette tape into the boombox. Why? How does stand-up comedy prove anything? Gonna teach us a lesson, comedian? Tristan and Abigail looked at me with a sneering smile. I pressed the play button regardless. Just tie her up. We're going to make a killing at the horse races in Kentucky, so behave. See, if you don't behave, you'll hurt like last time. When we get back, tell us where the banking card and seal are. Really? Can't find it anywhere. Where did you hide it? What came out of the boombox wasn't stand-up comedy, but an audio recording of Tristan and Abigail abusing Mom. Mom had recorded the abuse over the stand-up comedy tapes. That's why she wanted them brought to her. Hearing this recording, Tristan and Abigail collapsed to their knees, as if all strength had left them. Was this what Tristan called the joy of life? Mom has become so thin, almost just skin and bones, all because of you two. We don't know anything about that, Abigail shouted back at us loudly. As Jackson and I looked down on Tristan and Abigail, the doorbell rang. Ding dong! They're here. I headed to the door. I returned to the living room with the police and a social services officer. Faced with the unexpected visitors, Tristan and Abigail looked shocked. The social services officer showed Tristan and Abigail the hospital's diagnostic report and the doctor's opinion. The police went to check the bed. You've committed a serious crime. You'll be paying for it from now on. Let the police thoroughly investigate and see for yourself how terrible the things you've done are. We also handed over the cassette tape that recorded the abuse to the police. Tristan and Abigail will be judged for their crimes accordingly. Jackson spoke to Tristan. We won't be sending money anymore. We're cutting ties with you. This house belongs to Mom. We're going to sell it. Don't come back here. Suddenly, Tristan bowed deeply. Perhaps he finally realized his situation. Alyssa, if we lose this house, we'll have nowhere to live. I'll really look for a job this time. Please forgive us. Abigail also bowed deeply. I'll take care of Mother-in-law too. Please forgive us. Now that they found themselves in a desperate situation, their attitude became completely opposite, calmly apologizing. It's too late. We can't trust you two anymore. Please, just this once. Forgive us this one time. How long will they keep saying just this time? Do they think we'll relent? You will pay for your crimes no matter what. Don't ever contact us again. Jackson pulled out a debit card from the box containing the cassette tapes. Is this what you were desperately looking for? The debit card contained the money Dad and Mom had saved diligently and Dad's life insurance. I pulled the debit card out from between the boombox and showed it to Tristan and Abigail. So it was there all along. If only we had that. Wow. Tristan and Abigail began to cry out loudly. Even as the police took Tristan and Abigail away, they continued to insult each other. A futile effort till the end. They were crying and wailing as they were forced into the police car and taken away. The evidence against Tristan and Abigail included not just the audio recording of abuse, but also the restraints found on the bed. Additionally, the loud yelling of Tristan at night and Abigail's shrill screams, as reported by neighbors, served as testimony to the abuse. Further investigation revealed that a substantial life insurance policy had been taken out on Mom, leading to intense interrogations day after day. The police, calling it an inquiry, informed me of this. They were likely to be found guilty and face a severe sentence. Tristan and Abigail would be spending some time in prison. I hope they reflect on their crimes and make amends. We are seeking damages from Tristan and Abigail. After their release, they will have to make payments for the rest of their lives. I told Jackson I wanted to live with Mom. He gladly agreed.
Yeah, let's live with mother-in-law.
We decided to consult with Mom and use the money from selling the house for renovations. Although Mom, Jackson, and I are getting on in years, it's the start of a new chapter in our lives. It feels exciting. Mom seems excited too, smiling as she says, "A bigger kitchen would be nice," discussing the house layout with the architect. Our peaceful days continued until our eldest son's wife announced her pregnancy. She wants to raise the child at home after giving birth. Her parents are on an overseas assignment, so they've turned to us for support. For me, it's my first grandchild, and for Mom, her first great-grandchild. So our quiet days will be put on hold for a while as we embark on these busy days ahead. Someday, I want to ask Mom, do you think Jackson and I have become a couple like you and Dad?